is an innovation lead? If you were to do a quick job search on LinkedIn or a job portal, you might find titles like innovation lead, innovation manager. Sometimes you might find a role that doesn't even have the title innovation in it, but implies an innovation role. But I think the common thread through all of these roles is that it is a role appointed by the organization to drive innovation at large, right? So this is a person who is dedicated to innovation, has KPIs related to innovation, and more than likely will be leading a cross-functional innovation team to drive value, right? And oftentimes it's not just one innovation lead, it's actually a number of those leads working on very specific portfolios, right? And together they're creating a portfolio of new products and services, or even service experiences that would go to market eventually. And this also includes internal innovations, right? The things which were created to help the organization internally, which could perhaps one day be commercialized in the market, right? So there are a number of these roles out there. But today we're going to talk about what exactly is an innovation lead doing, right? So from a practical lens, what would this person be doing day to day? What's a quick way to summarize what that looks like, right? And I think for me, it's 5 things in my lived experience, right? So 1, this person is basically a scientist. 2, this person is also a gatekeeper. 3, this person is a designer. 4, this person is an athlete. And finally, this person is everything everywhere all at once, just like the movie. Let's dive into each of these personas and let me know what you think in the comments below. Let's talk about the innovation lead as a scientist. So primarily, you're brought into the organization to drive value in terms of new products, in terms of new services, right? But in order to get there, you're probably going to need a very in-depth understanding of the organization, right? So you're always going to be asking questions and posing hypotheses to understand if an innovation or the idea of an innovation is actually going to create value, right? So if you're newly put into a role of fintech, right, and you don't come from a fintech background, you're going to have to find out a number of things, right? How does the back end of the bank work? How does payments work, right? How do we deliver services to customers? How do we make sure that banking becomes a priority for some of these citizens? And there are a million questions that could come with a fintech endeavor, for example. If you're also in charge of that portfolio and making sure that it goes to market, you're going to have to understand the go-to-market process of the company. You're going to have to understand the R&D processes, especially if you're going into a life sciences and healthcare environment, right? So there are a multitude of things that you have to quickly pick up, right? And having a scientific mindset is so important and so critical for an innovation lead to pick up things that he or she doesn't already know, and more than likely won't know. The second thing is you're probably going to be a gatekeeper, right? So given that this innovation lead is someone who is trying to understand the business, trying to understand the intersection of value and the intersection of newness, right? You're basically trying to find out, if I'm sitting here and there are all these partners out there in the ecosystem, right? Whether it's a startup, whether it's a technology company, whether it's a competitor, right? So there are a number of these people who could be partnering with the firm. You're basically acting as a gatekeeper to say, wait a sec, right? Let's have a criteria. Let's have a list of things that say, whether this company is actually going to add value through a partnership, right? So oftentimes how that manifests is in what we call short lists and long lists, right? So you're going to look at things like, say, a company's financials. You're going to look at things like a company's past funding rounds if they're a startup. You're going to look at, the technology, right? How special really is the technology that this company is promising to bring into your organization? And does it make sense for you to do that in the long term, right? So, pair that with the scientist. And basically, you're not just finding companies to partner with, right? You're also interrogating the very reasons and the nature of why this company would be useful to you in connection to what you found as a scientist, right? So that's the second thing, right? Which is basically, you're going to be a gatekeeper. A lot of people are going to come to you and say, this company is great, that company is great. I think we should do this. I think we should do that. You're a gatekeeper for the organization and its innovation ambition. The next thing, and I think this shouldn't come as a surprise to many people in the tech world, is that you will be a designer, right? So you're going to be someone who creates something out of nothing, right? Some people say that the design thinking process is so important, and I would agree. But I think there's also a second component which designers often delve into, right? Which is really around execution, right? So on the one hand, you're going to have to think like a designer. You're going to have to say, if I'm going to create something completely new, right, that's going to change the way things work at this company, or it's going to add value for its customers, how do I start to think of that in a logical and structured way, right? How do I go from pen and paper to a prototype and then pilot it and finally take it to market? Who are the people that I need to involve in this process in order to get it there, right? So very much like how a graphic designer, right, might work with a multitude of different people. A graphic designer would work with a copywriter. He or she would work with the account executive. He or she would work with the creative director. It's the same thing, right? You're going to have to think like a designer in order to put pen to paper and paper to market, right? And the second part of that is a good designer executes, right? So you're going to have to hone your craft in a way where you actually know what makes a good product, what makes a good experience, right? And granted, the innovation lead isn't going to be the expert at every single product, right? And that's why it is so important that the next point comes in as an innovation lead, which is to be everywhere all at once, right? I sort of snuffed it up, but you get my drift, right? You're going to be someone who is going to understand multiple facets of the business. And the way you do that is through constant interaction with the right people, right? So as an innovation lead, you're going to be responsible for so many things, right? You're going to probably set up an innovation lifecycle to which you say, how do we go from initial ideation to testing? How do we create a safe space to test that? How do we actually bring it to customers within the bounds of regulatory requirements and legal requirements and so forth? And then finally, how do we take it to market in a way that our customers can actually see value very quickly, right? And then sustain that value, right? You're going to have to talk to a multitude of people to do that, right? And that includes people from risk, people from legal, people from marketing, people from tech, the list goes on, right? And the only way you're going to show these people that you mean business is by actually, rolling your sleeves up and working with these people. So tangibly, what that looks like is working with the risk department to come up with a risk assessment process for innovation. Maybe that also means incorporating new product development into existing product marketing and product development processes, right? Maybe that also means incorporating a new legal structure, right? So things like how do we execute the right and lean contracts in order to partner with a startup, right? Versus, long protracted discussions that typically involve very large scale vendors, right? These are the kind of things that you're going to have to pick up very quickly. And in order to do that, you're going to be everywhere, right? So a lot of the innovation lead's role is fundamentally about building relationships, building trust, showing that you understand and empathize with the day-to-day pain points and jobs to be done of all these stakeholders who are going to make innovation a success. Finally, you're going to have to be an athlete, right? So why an athlete? Day in, day out, right? An innovation lead, just like an entrepreneur, is going to have to prove your value, right? You're going to have to say, in this year, here's our portfolio. In a year, how many of these products or these services are likely to scale, right? Just like a startup would say, with all this funding from the VCs, how are we going to actually demonstrate ROI in a year? It's the same thing, right? So an innovation lab loses its focus when it does not create, right? And in order to do that, you're going to have to keep running day in and day out, proving value, right? So talking to the right people, formulating business cases, making sure that within your cross-functional team, they're not facing blockers, right? They're not facing difficulties in executing the vision from pen to paper to market, right? Constantly having that drive. You're also going to role model the whole sort of meaning of innovation, right? A lot of people will lose focus along the way. They're going to say, oh, crap, like at this point, we've been doing this and we're not getting recognition. We're not seeing results. You're going to have to be that one guy who's relentlessly optimistic, relentlessly driving for performance, relentlessly driving for greater things to come for the team, right? That spirit and the enthusiasm is so important. And that's why I say the innovation lead in a way is also both a champion and an athlete. So today we've talked about the role of the innovation lead from 5 personas. And hopefully this helps new innovation leads, as well as innovation leads who've been in the trenches for years. In the coming episodes, we're going to look at things like cross-functional innovation teams. We're going to look at the innovation lifecycle. We're going to look at what risk means from an innovation perspective. And I'd love to hear your comments and your thoughts, right? Is this what was true for you as well? Is your lived experience vastly different? What are some things that we can talk about that we can bring to the community? And I'm really excited to talk to everyone about this. So until next time, thanks for tuning in. This is Christian and the Innovation Jam.